And good afternoon. It is Shirley with Spirit of Matter and Night and Moon Hour. So right now we are having sunset and we're going from Jupiter day to Moon Hour when the Moon is in Jupiter sign, midheaven ruled by Jupiter, as well as the ascendant separating from Saturn and Jupiter in the third house of Taurus. So today's episode actually is prompted by a couple of things that I saw actually on social media, and I wonder why am I saying this right now, um, and why doesn't it cling to me? And there were various things. So the first thing I woke up and on Twitter there was two people writing about getting out of victimhood and stuff like that. And then I logged on Facebook, which is the Israeli community for me, and there were another two people talking about getting out of victim mentality and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, that is very interesting. Um, Somebody on Twitter associated with the 12th house and Pisces, and I'm like, there's nothing in particular that I find prompted here. Um, I don't know why are those things coming up, and the and then I was just watching the video by the Medicor astrologer, and this guy is great. Like, he's got fascinating content, very concise. So I totally recommend. And he had an episode about electional astrology, actually. And then he started talking about Eris, so the goddess of discordia. And I have something that I was planning to do with Eris, and I'm so unappointable that it still did not come up. Um, and I was thinking, okay, the Eris where Rahu is about to go, okay, Rahu is in 27 degrees Aries, and on 23 degrees retrograde, there is the goddess of discordia, that is Eris. Now, let's see, I don't think I can show you with this particular one, but the trend of the moon, as I woke up, it was going from Scorpio to Sagittarius, and it was in conjuncting Eris. So, yes, it was in conjuncting Eris. Um, and the reason that things didn't kind of fall into pieces was because Eris is the goddess of discord. Her story is that she was not a part of the tribe or the community or the high society. And if people are making this parts where they invite people over. And recently I saw some videos about all the money, okay, and the way that the communication works there. So it's a good example of how the days where people were invited into the high society and they were expecting to meet each other and mingle. And Eris she was, if you know the song "The Lady is a Tramp," I totally find it as a Reshkigal / Eris song, because it is about that woman who wants to get up with all the rest of the women to clean after the man when the dinner is, and she won't pretend that she likes you if she doesn't like you. Um, she doesn't play pretend. She doesn't have the social etiquette that is required to be invited to the party. Much like Ereshkigal, except that Ereshkigal became the queen of the underworld, while Eris, she had an idea. She was not seen, not invited, not included, and that means not only socially, okay? It's not about it's beyond being bullied, or it's not bullied in as much as people not talking to you or something like this. Beyond even that, even though this in itself is horrible, if you are not included, it basically means you are not included also in resources. You are not included. Your file would not come up when you had to have your rights met, when you had to have assistance, when you had to have income or a job interview, or so that literally meant life risking. Okay, it's not just about being petty. Oh, they won't talk to me. I feel a victim, and so no, it's a victim of corruption. Okay, and her idea to get out of it was to basically put a Trojan horse. And the Trojan horse story is about you put something legitimate. Think about hacking as well. Okay? You put something that looks like a legitimate program, and then it unravels. So basically, it is wearing the mask, and it's kind of like if I'm going to put the mask on, it's going to be expensive for the people that I have to put the mask on. So Eris plants in this Trojan horse and creates discord, and kind of causes ladies to fight with each other, causes everybody to fight with everybody and everybody to argue with everybody. And as I look at it from an astrological point of view, I say Eris card of enlightenment is discord or discordia. And it's one of those, in 2016, 17, Eris was conjuncting Uranus on, I think, 20 or 22 degrees of Aries. And that was about the time of the Me Too. But the Me Too was not just women exposing cases that happened to them with the high society. It was also women fighting women, women arguing with the women who were helping the offenders, women fighting in between them and themselves. If you kind of look at the sex work discourse, and all the various opinions, and so many marginalized groups that we didn't even know existing kind of began to speak up, and we began to hear voices that we didn't hear in the discourse through that enlightenment card of discordia. Okay? No matter who you were at the time, there was a liberation and a revolution, and you began to speak up, and your opinion probably evolved and probably changed. So Aries, she's actually the interesting card of the party because she makes people remove the masks, but through conflict. Especially now that we discovered her in Eris, which is ruled by Mars, and it's also severing ties, conflict, but also righteousness and righteous rage, and autonomy, sense of self. So, kind of that moon going even from Mars sign before it enters Sagittarius, and going into the in conjunct, which is a 150 degree. In the in conjunct, I take it from a Truth in Aspect astrology that talks about the in conjunct as a place. It's like water and oil, but if you want to work with this, you need to sacrifice something. And this is something I didn't know. And that is, you have to choose one or the other. You have to make a sacrifice. And so the lunar mention that the moon was entering is actually the lunar mention that is good for besieging cities, that deals with loss, and deals with confrontation and having to confront. It's the 19th lunar mention. So this is where we actually have to be confrontational. Okay? And the in conjunct with Aries kind of stirs up a conversation. Because one way, at the end of Scorpio, tropical Scorpio, and the beginning of Sagittarius, is the transformed archetype. Okay, if in the beginning of Scorpio you just open the door and soon enough something will happen because it's Scorpio house that's going to transform you from the core of who you are. As you leave, you are transformed. And for many people, that transformation is actually, I'm no longer a victim of the circumstances. I'm no longer a victim of what happened to me. I'm no longer a victim. And that, I guess, is what prompted a lot of people to kind of have this realization. Okay, this lunar mention that rises, the phoenix rises from the ashes, um, and we're heading towards Antares. So you become victorious, and Antares is, I take it from Kitlin Kopak that mentioned Antares as the self-made billionaire, the self-made person, the actual self-made person. Like if you think about the people who fight and or boxers who fight and they can get killed. I'm not talking WWF. I'm talking like the actual street fight where people can get killed. And it's you either kill everybody and win or die, and then that's your only way to make wealth, to build up wealth, because you have to win against all odds. You have to win even though you didn't have the conditions to do so. And so while the moon is a place where you win anyway, I'm not going to be where I was born, what I was just, I'm not going to be a victim to that. I'm going to win anyway. I'm going to take the crown. I'm going to do whatever I have to do to make it in life. Eris in Eris was actually a victim of corruption. And it's not that she stayed in her victimhood, or people call it victim mentality, which I find quite problematic, especially when we talk about people who were victims. Okay, people who went through torture, people who went through abuse, people who went through, all kinds of stuff. They were victims, okay? She doesn't stay in this, I survived that and that trauma. She definitely acts because she's in the sign of action now. And it's right, she was the one who started the Trojan War. So this is why I got up and I'm like, why do people even talk about victimhood in this? Like, Ra is not to go Eris. We don't have any prompting, we have Saturn retrograde in Pisces and maybe that, but the moon was not like it's squaring Saturn now. Okay, it was applying to, but squaring Saturn now. It was still in Scorpio, people wrote that. And I kind of feel that the place where the moon is at, or the lunar dimension, 19th lunar dimension, application to conjunct Antares, is the exact, it's not the exact opposite. That's the thing. It's like oil and water with where Eris is at, which is the larger cycle, okay, where there is corruption. There are people who are victimized by this corruption, and they were victimized so much so that this is what they have to do. And so, because I guess I'm more familiar with Eris is next to my Mercury, the only thing I have, like my Ketu is in degrees Sagittarius, my Mars in 22 degrees Mars, but Eris is closer to my Mercury. It's closer to hit home, okay? Literally, because Mercury is ruling my 7th and 4th. And the way I experienced this, I was reading these posts, and immediately, if you think about projection, what I was projecting was immediately Adolf Hitler. Oh my God, at the point where Eris goes through, you already understand you're not to blame for what happened to you. Okay, so understand that there was an event of victimhood. Okay, and for Hitler, it was, I don't know exactly, read like the whole history, but from the beginning of what I began to read about Mein Kampf, which is him in his words is the closest that we have, he was identified with the motherland. And so if you think about what happened to the great motherland of Germany, is that there were 300 years of war on the land of Germany. This is why so dangerous things that happen right now, for example, in Syria and unfortunately in Ukraine. Although the world does step in Ukraine's side, it's still perverted. And in Syria, it's even worse. And so the identification with the victimhood state and the notion that I also ran into a post that war, it was Til Swank, but she was not the only one writing about this, that war affects us. It was not her saying, it was her video. Somebody wrote, war affects us 7 generations onward. And I was just thinking, well, I don't know a time in history where there were 7 generations without a war. Maybe the golden ages, but I don't know about this. So if you think about the way a person, in this case Adolf Hitler, was affected by 7 generations, more than such 300 years is more than 7 generations of war on the land of Germany, and the desire to redeem the motherland, basically, even though he would not be considered Irish in his own, like in his, he had this dark hair, dark eyes. He would not be considered Irish if people had to see, if he was not Hitler, he would not be considered. He would probably die in the Holocaust. Okay? Not necessarily as Jew, but definitely Irish. So still he identified with this notion of the need to redeem the motherland. And he complained, why don't they call us Austrians to fight in the great empire of, I think it was Austro-Hungary by then. It's not Prussia anymore. Everything mixes, okay? So, but it was like, why don't they call us to fight? And now, I'm growing up in Israel, 3rd generation to the Second World War, from the Holocaust victims, right? Okay, survivors. But yeah, the first thing we have mandatory army service. So unless you are like really sick or something else, you usually either go to the army unless you're not recruited. So I was like raising my eyebrows really high when I read, why are they not calling us to go to war? and the different approaches to that. The thing is that Younger was aware that he is deserving. He is deserving. He is a soldier. He can fight. In his morality world, go by the morality perception of Yeshaya Leibovich in his morality world, he understands that he is valid. Whatever happens to Germany or whatever, if we do it on a personal level, he understands that he is not to blame for that. That it was something that in his eyes was incorrect, needs to be corrected. It cannot be that he is excluded as an Austrian person from the wars that they go to, or it's kind of like the parties that they go to or the wars that they go to. So he is not called, he is not addressed, he's not a part of that great nation, and he doesn't feel that this is true. Okay, so the Eris story is kind of like, you already know that you are not to blame for what happened to you. You already know that you are not to blame for the fact that you're not being called in when there is an important gathering. In his story, it was war, but it's not. Usually, it's about receiving resources and risking your life, and you already know that you are not to blame for what happened to you. Okay? But still, the world is incorrect. Still, if you try to go to a workplace, there would be people who would try to put you in human trafficking or bully you. And I have something to say about the variant too, scientifically, and I'll see when will I say it. But still, you know that the world is not changed. So let's say you were before the Me Too era. Let's say you went to one job, the boss was weird, so you went to another job, and then some colleague was weird, and you say, okay, what is happening? Maybe it's a pattern in me that I need to resolve, and you go to resolve. You go to your therapist. He is weird or she is weird, and in this way, what you actually are finding out is that for sure you have things to learn, to grow, to change about yourself. But it cannot be that all of these people, including those who are supposed to help you heal the weirdness, are all weird. It cannot be that even your therapist goes weird on you, okay? It cannot be that even your social worker goes weird on you or something like this, because you already understand that if I'm not to blame, my lesson was that I'm not to blame for what happened to me. I'm not. And I have to go out and find a better job or a better place, and I do it. And then those things happen. Those things happen. And I say, okay, maybe something in me. I go to therapy, and then the therapist is like this. So you begin to understand, as the saying goes, before you diagnose yourself with, I don't know how many years, make sure you're not surrounded by a-holes. And this is the stage where Eris is. She already understands that she's surrounded by a-holes. Now, what is the next phase? And the next phase, if we go back to 1939, or if we go back to even 1929, where it was in the ingress to Eris, the resolution means that all these people that a-holes, they either need to grow up, to enlighten, to receive the card of discordia, so that they can have a discourse that they can grow from, okay, from a higher point of view. And I'm going to tell you how it works with a particular variant that's related to Eris as well. Or, and it's okay, people are not, we cannot be aware of everything that happens in the world. If you have to go to a place or you're surrounded by something, and certain things just take granted, and they don't, either they bother you but you don't understand, or you become sick and you don't know why you are sick, but it's like things that are connected. It's waking you up, and it's very annoying. So it's just kind of like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh wait. And this is what happened to the Eris factor. Okay, the Eris factor is basically a person or a group of people that went by the natural course of life, and it was not naturally flowing, and they were trying to sort it out, thinking that maybe I am the weird person, and let's say I am the weird person. Okay, so how do I live? And then they find out that so basically the process that Eris makes people go through is the process that she went through. She basically, unless you work with her magically, and I call it the magic of the people. I don't like, it's very much in the buds what I'm doing, so I can't tell you. It's not that I don't want to tell you, it's just that I can't tell which is which. So and I have an Eris transit, so yeah, and I'm also working with Andromeda, because Eris is in Andromeda constellation right now, and that's good news, because Andromeda is about reconciliation and lasting love. Okay, if I take it from the Christopher Warnock Andromeda talisman. So that is also something to think about. But Eris in itself, as a transit, she went through all that. She went through all that discordia. She went through trying to think what is wrong with her, Maybe she's a victim and she needs to get out of the victim mentality. Maybe she doesn't have like abundance mindset. Maybe this, maybe that. And then she's like, oh, fuck it. Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Like, people need to know this yesterday. And with Eris, any change in your life, it had to have happened yesterday. You only find out now. It's like, oh my God, this should have been here yesterday. If you know the type of people that, let's say, they quit smoking, and they tried it and tried, finally they got something that got them to quit smoking. And they say, oh my God, this thing everybody should be doing yesterday. Okay? And so they can be really annoying about this, but it's also really necessary because it's a life or death issue for many. And the card, when Eris pulls this Trojan horse, is not necessarily that she's doing this with hatred, although on a mundane level she might. It's more like she understands that the resolution to her hatred is this big chaos where a new order emerges. So she's going to give you a certain experience where you go like, okay, this cannot be. This cannot be. You know, if not for Eris squaring Pluto, it would probably not be as easy to understand what is gaslighting. Because gaslighting has been here for millennia. Sometimes we have been participating without knowing that this is what we're doing. We just learned this way of communication, then people proceed on. Doesn't mean that everybody who's doing gaslighting is, a sociopath or whatever, whatnot. But it definitely helped that an entire society faced with that. Okay? Any one of you that has been through gaslighting before 2008 know the difference. It's about 2015, 2016, when Eris conjunct Uranus, squaring Pluto. Oh my God. Oh my God. And a lot of things from those words came in. For those of you who are doing channeling, downloading, or thought that they were going psychotic because they received this information and didn't know how to explain it, and it definitely put through an experience. So the thing is that it's an understanding that the only way people are going to wake up on time is if they basically are met with this crisis situation. For example, if you went through gaslighting in 2007 and you didn't understand what the F was going on, then maybe it was some ex, some person you met online, some boss, somebody, okay? And you didn't understand what was going on. Maybe you were trying to understand the person, maybe you're trying to understand what's wrong with you. And then it goes through an entire, like you have nobody to speak to, you go to therapy, the therapist says, oh, everybody does a bit of manipulation, even in healthy relationship. Oh, my husband does this sometimes, and you understand you're like, there's an existential gap. And everybody thinks you're oversensitive. You say, okay, maybe I'm high sensitivity personality, and then what is the treatment of that, you know? Versus when it was 2015, 2016, and people began to understand and give it a name, and it became more widespread, a thing called gaslighting, word salad. And it's like, oh, they were communicating, but they were not actually, it's not that they were like communicating weird or that I was not getting it. It was just like that's what their technique of communication to sort of like cause that. Ah, okay. And you know that if you were there in 2007, you thought, I think it is something like that, but it cannot be. What are they? It's very crazy. Why would anybody do that? And as you go into Pluto Capricorn, it's kind of like now it's a social thing. Now you have videos to tell you about this. Now you have people that begin to talk about this. And as the years progressed, 2017, 2018, by 2019, people knew what gaslighting was for sure. And here I want to talk about something called the variant. And this is another thing with Eris. Eris is linked to the viruses and the variants. Both Eris and Pluto are associated with Mars and is also poisoning. Pluto is associated to cell regeneration and nuclear energy. So you think about epigenetics. If you go to the theories of even 29, you think about eugenics and the attempt to create a person free of any deformity, or the Übermensch. Okay, it's not, Hitler did not invent this. This was not the Übermensch. Nobody invented it. So a bit of epigenetics or looking at genetics is always going to contain something like this. While the people who do that to be a better person, there are other variants and other interests involved with this. And so Eris is very much coming up, and I really thank Astro Catherine for this again and again and again. It's from her I heard Eris being linked, or Eris retrograde being linked to the recent variant that we had. And then from there on, it was easy for me to predict that this variant will affect the intestines. And indeed, we have intestines-related diseases called diarrhea, and so viruses, and so on and so forth. Even somebody in Israel came from India with some agriculture-related stuff, and it had a bacteria that affects the intestines and causes diarrhea. So Mars was in Virgo, ruled intestines. So we think about what's in our gut and what's in our and the level of stress we have, or what's in our gut and what's in our thinking, and the nervous system and the gut system and how they relate. So now everybody that's getting this poison is going to experience the link between the gut and the nervous system. Okay, if you think about COVID, where Jupiter was going over the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, and Jupiter rules the lungs, then COVID and then long COVID brought a mass phenomena where everybody understands that you can be misdiagnosed, you can get it and not feel anything, and you can get it and die. And also after you get it, if you've been infected with the poison, then you are having long COVID. Okay, and even if you are given something to treat the poison by injection, then this also bears influences. Now, huge masses of people understand that it cannot be that the symptoms that they're having have nothing to do with what they have injected. Okay? When that was happening in niche hospitals around the 2010 or 2014, 15, and even before that, hardly anybody was bringing this to the discourse. Okay? Because unless you were a victim of this corruption, the spotlight was not on that. It was not on beta blockers. Nobody knew, for example, that beta blockers began to be a script that was chronic, that the person has to take it forever and after to supposedly avoid psychic attack. But nobody knew that, and nobody knew what the suffering that people who were told that were going through, and some of them by force. And so only when we had from 2019 the series of variants of poisoning did people begin to be aware that slow, little by little by little, there is something going on here. Now on the pause and talk about some scientific stuff. One of the arguments in the recent Eris variant is that it cannot be that it's so early that they have a vaccine for the poison so early, they have a solution so early on. It cannot be, they just discovered this variant. And I want to argue in favor of scientific awareness, okay? And I'm going to use the example of gaslighting for that. We're talking poisoning and reaction to poisoning. We see it astrologically. We understand this by now. We get it, okay? We get it. If you so much as listen to Richard Feynman lectures, I think it was in Caltech in the 60s. He talked about, he was sitting with people who were in Caltech working on this, okay? Medical warfare versus medical welfare, and so on and so forth. And this is completely, science by a person who had hands-on experience and talked with the people who were involved with, in his words, coming up with cures to ailments that we didn't think that we can cure. And there were other teams that were busy with coming up with ailments that it would be very difficult, if impossible, to cure. Okay, so we had this, and this is being told us by Richard Feynman in Caltech in the 1960s. And there's the book that you can read about the Caltech. There's the lectures you can really listen to the scientists in their voices, and you'll know. It's not for nothing that Richard Feynman talked about, for example, the ceremony of brushing our teeth and cult-like sciences around nutrition, and so on and so forth. And even I, who listen to him a lot and is not trusting everything that I see or read, did not understand what did he want from brushing my teeth. What the heck was this? And oh, did I get it? Okay. So I want us to understand that this is true, and also understand that the argument that it's very difficult to find a solution or a vaccine to a variant, I also want us to understand this is a false argument scientifically. We should not, I don't want to say the word should, but if we can allocate time and resources to that, we don't have to use bad science as an argument in our discourse. We can actually understand this as they are without reverting to bad science. How could it be that? Because let's take a look at gaslighting. And variants are pretty much the same. Variant of something means something very little, even such as a molecule, is changed, is mutated. And now you're just working. If you find a mutation, which is not difficult to find, okay, then you have how to work against it. Okay, if it's the same technology of RNA stuff, I can't call them vaccine, right? And I also have to space out my insights for the algorithm. So if the technique is to work with RNA-based stuff, then even if we didn't know how it's going to variant, because it varies in labs, they do it, of course, yes, but it's also happening. It's occurring. Even if we didn't have that, it's not rocket science to adjust our technique of reaction to the variant. And I want to give the example of gaslighting. Okay, so let's say we're gaslighted in 2007, 2008, and it was, say, doesn't 2015, maybe if you're very lucky, a bit early, or 2006, you learned what wonderful. Everybody knows that was awakened to understand what is gaslighting, began to identify it sometimes at our parenting family, some at our community and tribe, sometimes at our religious leaders or non-religious leaders, at our bosses, and so on and so forth. So when you know what is gaslighting or what is world salad, or it's like all the techniques that people use to gaslight, you already understand that if you meet it at a boss, if you meet it in a romantic situation, meet it here, if you meet it there, you already know that it is what it is. Okay? You already understand, oh, this is what it is. Okay? And with variants, it's pretty much the same. If you already know what mutated, then you can understand, like you could put it in a microscope and you get the response. You get the mutant, you get the response. We have the technology, like we have really talented and intelligent chemists and people and scientists that have the talent, whether it is for poisoning or it is for genuinely working so we should not be forced to use bad science argument that the Eris variant is poison. Okay, this is something that we understand quite naturally. Right? Lack of transparency, the masses of people, the fact that you say XYZ, and if you try to say XYZ, then the algorithm in any social media will check people and sanction the ability to deliver information by all kinds of excuses, not have anything to do with science. And those of us who know more already understand that there are many people who are being silenced and who are being sanctioned and who scapegoated because they were whistleblowers. Okay, so I can't tell you Eris is the whistleblower, but she can be because she's the card of discord. Okay, with the two we had Uranus and Eris conjunct in Eris, and that sparked up along the Venus point and the Rahu in Leo, but it sparked up a revolution in who do we listen to, who do we believe, and the discourse changing the map. We're not accepting of the status quo. Hey, those can't happen. If your law system doesn't work, then if your economic system doesn't work, then we need to change it. If your hospitals do not work, we need to change. If your therapists do not work, we need to change that. Okay, that's Eris, and Uranus just sparked the let's make a revolution. Let's spread it around even more. So Eris is spreading things around widely, and Uranus is an extra okay into that. So 2016, 2017, it was definitely a time in society where things exploded, but there was also intelligent force around this. Okay, for starters, the old ways were no longer working, and they were not having. They were not. I don't care what's your excuse. I'm not supposed to be violated. I come to work. With Rahu in Eris, we're gonna have an extra extra. It's going to be treated by sleep cycle, and we're going to have, yeah. And so think about this. If you didn't, let's say you didn't meet gaslighting in 2007, 2008. Soon enough in 2023, you know what gaslighting is. Okay, you met it, maybe you read in the news, maybe this, maybe that. Maybe you don't know the whole of it, but it's like you know that it exists. Now the person who says, when I speak with my boss, I don't know why they make me feel crazy. They make me myself that the person you're speaking with might not be the crazy person. Okay, you already understand. Yeah. And in this situation, when there are masses of people that have been seen with as being victims of corruption, we understand that they are not to blame for what happened to them. And when a person said, I have been mistreated here, 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 and here, they're having victim mentality. Okay? But going back to the conversation of today, the moon ruler of own kingdom, coming from old wealth, generational wealth, from all of those, from status, from the right this, and despite that they make it. The moon is in a situation that calls us to confront it. Come on, win, come on, get out, shake yourself up, transform. And I want to tell you that this is not against what Eris says. Okay? It's not against what Eris says. Because in order to change what needs to be changed, the entire humanity needs to take this, do something about this. Okay? Albert Camus, his book Hunger Bell. Oh, wait, please. Food. And she's being playful. Sometimes she just playful. I think she wants her dinner. So yeah. Where was I even? Okay, what I have to say that to wake the F up and do something about it, if you are in a position you can, is actually the call to action of Eris in as much as of the moon. You say, but what can you do? The first step, understand you're not to blame for what happened to you. And you're imagining if it happened here and 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 here. But why are you running away? You know that I come to give you food. No, you're still not to blame for those things, and you are not imagining. You're not imagining, not to blame, or not like sexual assault, harassment, or anything like that. I'm talking about your medical situation, answers you got from your doctors. Okay, the inaccessibility of taking a walk in nature in a way that's for you if you have immune problems. Okay, all of those things are all a part of this. And it can be something not even maybe been dealing about plagiarism or your work being taken from you. Okay, all of these things that you do not mean that you about and you say, I don't know what the F is going on. I went to this doctor, to that doctor, to that doctor, to that. All of them tell me all kinds of weird stuff that don't compile. Okay? It's not that you're having a mentality and therefore you're getting weird answers from all of your doctors. Okay, anybody who has had an issue or related issue knows that fibro people, endo people, and they kind of know that you doctor to another, from one doctor to another, say it cannot be from that. Even people who were that having a personality disorder, and the psychiatrist told them it cannot be from trauma. No, you have a personality disorder. And it's like, definitely a person can act in a way that the word borderline or narcissist seems fitting after they have gone through trauma. But to say it cannot be from trauma is a misunderstanding of the core of even personality disorder. Supposedly, if we accept this, so I have nothing against the person who calls their situation a name, and that name is personality disorder, and they feel validated and do radical acceptance. But I do have a problem when a person is being given a wrong diagnosis, and not only that, being invalidated. Okay, so the use of victim mentality is diagnosis is a pandemic now. And it's not only for the case of, and it's not only for the case of fibro. Okay, anybody with poison was affected. Okay, and in 2000, the 2020, it could have been the family that you've been seeing since childhood, or so for many years. So it could, and so the notion that you are no longer thinking I am to blame for what happened to me. You're no longer in this situation. No, I am not to blame for what happened to me. But also, how do we change and get out of the situation of being a victim? Okay, it's not a victim mentality. It's out of the situation of being a victim. Okay, it needs social change. Okay, and that is the Eris story. The inconjunct was kind of reminding us that the situation of having gone through perpetual corruption does not mean that you have a victim mentality or that something is with you. And that is the point where you can start to interfere. That is what is being asked of us. Okay? Remember, Eris works in a very discordial logic, okay? Because it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but just, and it's beyond something that I can describe. It actually, it's just when you do what you the subsides slowly, and what begins to emerge is the order of things. It doesn't seem reasonable, and yet works. People who are scientists had the moon square Eris. Okay, and I study Life with Me, where I give all the credit to the who wrote the articles, because I don't remember now from the top of my head, but did not come up the notion of what I'm saying. Scientists like Albert Einstein that discovered certain theories, and they had moon a square in Eris. Sometimes they found it difficult to accept the theory because it seemed so counterintuitive. Maybe if you have moon trining Eris or moon sailing Eris, then you may think unconventionally, but it's easier for you to understand that you're correct. And so the only way I can align the notion of if, there's a core thing to change about yourself if you're a perpetual victim is maybe accepting those things with more ease or accepting intuition you have about something. Although 2019 was another animal. So if 2019 was involved in that, yeah, I don't know what to say. Um, but that's the only way I can kind of think that the two places where the boss and is and where Eris is can somehow meet. And definitely we are disillusioned. Okay, with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, we are from a healthcare system, and we are disillusioned from we're both disillusioned from the notion that somebody will come and save us, but also disillusioned from the notion we can do it by ourselves. Okay, there's a certain surrendering that is needed with the Pisces part, with Saturn retrograde in Pisces, where the moon is now squaring. It's like, yeah, nobody's going to save you, but it also doesn't, you can necessarily do it all by yourself. And there can be a sense of like, oh, my entire life is falling apart. And it's not so much I can do of this. It's just like everything is falling apart, and it's not so much I can do about this. And this is also calling you, especially with Saturn square here. It's both understanding nobody's necessarily coming to save you, and you're not imagining there are things falling apart. You have to. There are many things you would have to surrender, so that things will come into place, or you cross over, which is another thing that can happen with those situations. Of course, you need more than one indication. If you're talking about like something happening in your life, Kara Ryberg had a lovely post on Twitter. She said, if you want to locate certain event, when will I get married or when will I die, then you need more than one. Okay, you need at least 3-4 things that are in what is the Zodiac release in timing techniques, doshas if you're working Vedic astrology, profession years, and then transit. So a transit itself is not something, or eclipses and transit. Okay? Like in concrete case, when I talked about the eclipses with Eris and moving for those eclipse cycles, I saw so many indications that my fifth house, my ruler of the seventh and fourth, um, uh, and the locations of kind of Venus and Mars, Mars from the moon, and then all those things were all leading to something that's going on these topics. I have no idea why or what. I have no idea why exactly. It's just to this point, I have no idea why even, but definitely something to do with the seventh house, the fifth house is going to be very relevant for me. I don't know why, I don't know how, and I feel like my life is falling apart. It was a personal example. This is how I felt today, and not in a way that I am feeling like helpless in a. So it's like it was not intensely emotional. It was just facts, so to speak. Oh, my time is falling. But that was the situation. So definitely, if you're talking about more little things, then you need more than one indication for this. I'm not giving you when and how you will die. No, thank you. We had enough and so yeah, hoping and kind of praying that there would be a better signification of those things. And maybe I'm one of them. I'm going to read about Hitler because we cannot, if you don't have nothing Hitler, then you don't have a conversation. We talked about sex, did we? Yeah, we talked about sex. Now we need to talk about Nazis. So, okay. I don't think I found his. We'll go a bit deeper, no? And oh, we do have asteroids. We have that. Yes, it was fixed. So, in Pisces, it was in 19 degrees Pisces for him. Now I want to see if I can do a transit about this. I'm not sure how this thing is done. It doesn't look like this. Yeah. I was checking to see if this is Hitler because his Mercury is too close to mine. Oh my god. So he didn't have anything in particular. Jupiter, that is traditionally ruling Eris, was conjuncting his moon in Capricorn and trining his sun and Mach. So yeah. By the way, he didn't have anything in particular on the 22nd degree of to kill or be killed, which is surprising to me. Yet Eros in 18 degrees. He's a fair, I think, with around quite fatalistic. Was not contributing to his life. Yeah, do I have a smart thing to say about this? I don't know if I can do transits with this one. These asteroids. So we have the same Mark, which I'm not going to get into now. Yeah. And we know that in 1929, Eris regressed into Eris. He was born in 1889. So that would make him 40. Oh, so the ingress of Eris in the seventh house, which is not surprising. We know his relations with one-to-one partnership with Stalin ended in betrayal. He was the person who betrayed. But we had an episode about this. We understood that Stalin would betray if he would do it first. So his intuition about Stalin was right. Yeah. So Eris is dominant by Hitler from Moon conjuncting Jupiter, which was Eris. Okay, so it's not like he has a point or personal planet there. It's just that his Moon and Jupiter conjunct. And his sun is so close to the ascendant that I don't say if it operates as a night sect or a day sect. He did die from self-poisoning, supposedly, because I don't see anything that says, oh yes, there is Uranus in the first house, opposing the seventh, opposing Mercury here. So that Uranus can be suicide. So it was with his wife that he committed suicide. So yes, this is the one. But it's not like it's on the degree of suicide or on the degree of to kill and be killed. By the way, so and this Eris began to ingress. I think Eris would be on his what would be either the end of his life or kind of like, or the Stalin situation. I'm not sure. Um, Now we're gonna do it. Gonna have to do it a bit differently because you want to see current planets. I want to say something, and that is we have. I'm not gonna see. Oh, will I see it here? I don't think I will see it here. I'll just see. I don't think I will see it here because this is for planets and yeah, objects, planets. No, I will not see it here. You know what I can do? Sun ingressing to Eris in year 1939. Calculate. So what we're going to get with this chart is to be able to see where was Eris in 1939. And I want to see the others here. Asteroids. We'll take a bit time. Notice Mercury retrograde, and I think I was doing the. When was I doing the Stalin Hitler episode? I don't remember. But yeah, Mercury retrograde today. Yes, 1939. Eris applying to Eris and the Moon applying in 4 and 5 degrees. Eris, March 21, 1939. I don't know shit. We understand that this is where and she will go and stay on this degree probably also for the 19. And so we have this act of betrayal that is perfected in Eris and John Hitler's Sedna. This was a personal relation, somebody's seventh house that was quite pivotal for humanity. Yeah, and she would try Pluto as well. Okay, so she's trying to no separation. It's not tight enough for me to consider this trying. But yeah, it's on and off a trine to Pluto. Okay, this was the Pluto. Remember the dates that he spoke about the Second World War having to do with the trine between Eris and Pluto. Okay, we also know that there were medical experiments and all really fucked up stuff. Yeah, it was those things. So that was the situation. Now we are in the square, okay? And so there's the squares, there's discord, it's that stage where I talked about it as Sodom and Gomorrah, where I don't remember who was the prophet. He was trying to tell God, please don't destroy. Can we sweeten the judgment here? And God told him, please go to Sodom and Gomorrah, and if you find one saint, I do not destroy the city. And the prophet went and looked for, and he did not find one saint. So I definitely think we can find saints, okay? That being said, right now we're still looking for the saints. Okay? And we better find them, and we can find them. Like I said, every trine Pluto can be a couple of trans people having an orgy, willingly, consensually. Okay, and Eris is about that, sexuality that is sometimes maybe provocative, and sometimes it's just different. It's not provocation, but it's different. It's just who they are. And Pluto, is kind of like taboo stuff, that. It can absolutely be that. Okay, it doesn't have to be the underdogs of society reign, and they truly believed that they did not find one saint, so everybody must be destroyed. Okay, um, the situation we've been having since 2019. Does it seem okay to people that instead of being able to walk in nature or to walk in a forest peacefully and to heal the immune system, that people live in places where one person is sick and the entire community has to close itself down, doesn't have land, play with the kids, to run, to walk, to meditate, doesn't have the Lebens, it's just that term, it's the living space. Okay, we are just where we were. And Uranus is just where we were in, in the 39, right? There's Uranus. Split in 15 degrees Taurus. Now it's retrograde in there. Okay, so Uranus is just where it was. Okay, we are looking for a living space. It makes sense that if one of children, let's say in kindergarten, has a virus or so, or maybe was, God forbid, poisoned, then that child might not go to the and well, people play in their own household and they make sure that they are safe. It makes sense. Okay, when everybody has an acre of, whether they are not married, have children, not have children, when everybody has a river going, okay, water, a body of water that they can swim in, that is safe, where everybody has clear air, but everybody has food growing and not to be afraid of famine or any climatic, sozusagen. Then it makes sense. It makes sense a lot, but you have to have this living space, okay? And this is something also what helps the immune system. We all know is biodiversity. Biodiversity and basically diversity is something that is making a good immune system. Hitler was not correct in his ideology. It was not his ideology. The genetic purification to create the Ubermensch was actually deteriorating the race. It was deteriorating at any race because when you are not exposed, okay, even the Jews have a big problem because they're afraid of assimilation. It's a very big problem. If you're afraid of assimilation, then you mean are you are degenerating the tribe, basically. Our greatest thinkers, our greatest philosophers, if you take Maimonides, he was in exile and he was affected and affecting Sufi philosophers, Sufi Islamic philosophers. Okay, and now we have that within whatever was relevant for the spirit of the times. People got updated, and unfortunately, it went through exile because they were afraid of assimilation. So, it is very important to understand biodiversity is threatens the species, is threatening everything that is growing, whether it's plants, whether it's animals, whether it's human beings. Okay, not in a forced way. And coercion, it doesn't do good to people. So if we get this right now, then we don't have to go through tremendous experiences. People, what actually, why did they look into genetic lines? Because people were being born with deformities. If it's not for, Chernobyl crisis, why would people be born with deformities? Because we tend to adjust, okay? We want change. And so if you're purifying and purifying and purifying and purifying, then something will mutate to diversity, because we need diversity to be healthy, to be strong, okay? So it's also good to be left to our own devices, to be able to be alone, to be able to retreat. And so if we get now, then we really understand without judgment, without whatever, we can just say, okay, I can see what people like Hitler were thinking that was not in benefit of humanity. Okay, I can see how people were thinking in terms of creating a slaves and overpopulation. I can see now how willing consent balances out the concerns about overpopulation. I can see now how inclusivity and willing consent and inclusive people who are child free or who for some reasons don't want children is actually something that's very good for humanity, because we don't overpopulate, but we also allow to make living space for the people who are living. Okay, even when we can look at invasive species, and we can look at the flower that doesn't grow, and we can and if we think, oh, it's all a war, and all of that we see is it's all a war, and we constantly have to do something about it, or if we think internally, how do we create this inner harmony that's going to last for at least 7 generations? Biodiversity, okay, being exposed to differences, and willing consent, and inclusivity of exactly those people that people are so afraid of, LGBTQ people, transgender people. No, and living space. Okay, one thing that Hitler was absolutely correct about is that people need living space. It's just he believed every people need in their own land, and then there is a war between all the peoples. He was kind of taking this as nature goes, but on the notion that we need living space, we understood it very well in the lockdowns. Okay? The people who had living, they say, stay home. All the celebrities, home. Okay? I'm not going to say no names, but even if people I really appreciate, stay home, stay home, stay home. If people one-room apartment or half-a-room apartment, or living, in the city, and don't have a house with a yard and a beach, and so they can't stay home. Go out and do something to others. Okay, it's like the jail, the prison. Okay, you get what I'm talking about. And but if they have a place where they can have their own land, and they can meet people with a bit more caution when it's needed, then have a live. In 39, he was not dumb. He understood people need a living space. People need a place to live on. Okay? But if we are trying to purify the race, we are degenerating the race, because we need biodiversity, because we need because we need human rights is not something that is a mutant that we need to get rid of. Okay, it's not something that is against nature. It's something that is nourishing and is supportive of nature. Okay? And when we have living space, then we can withstand discordia and be enlightened with more ease. This maybe, I guess, is the golden age. Okay, I don't know. But it does support. If you have a supporting system that allows you to be yourself, and you're not cut off from resources, you're not with the major public opinion, then you don't go into survival mode all this much. There are many societies that actually live like this. Even in villages today, in certain regions of, let's say, Uganda, or I think even Nigeria, and you see people broadcast from there, and they're like, "What are you doing for a living?" I glow. We're growing crops. We're making food, we're dancing, we're living, we're taking care of the children in the village. If somebody's sad, we come, we stay with them. Yeah, I'm not saying there are no things that, you know, every tribe has a place, every has a taboos, but if you take a look at the point of the living space, it's like we are living. We are living. So we don't want to go back to the tribe that eventually was conquered because maybe not inclusive, okay? Because maybe there was not enough willing consent, okay? And this is also important to understand. When people do correctly and the effect is for 7 generations, they have the power to generate wealth and well-being for 7 generations, absolutely. Absolutely. You don't have to engineer it, it happens in itself. Okay? And so, talk about the living space is one thing. If we understand that we need this, and is achieved by connecting with the land, connect with the sand, connect with, if you're living in the city, there is no sand, okay? Go someplace, safely go someplace. If it is possible, if it's not possible, then ask, then pray, then set intention, so that you will be safe. So let's say even if you are dealing with immunity problems, then if it is possible for you to recover by connecting with the soil, or grow plants, or to do whatever you can do to expose yourself to the biodiversity that you can safely. And then when you've already been through this, then the environment itself, everything, the environment is a threat. So I totally think about what is the point of interference rather than, you know, ideation of whatnot. But this is the solution. Okay, this solution is more space and more freedom. It's not more oppression. Okay? Also, for the person who's dealing with this, we want to expose ourselves to nature in a safe way. Okay? To contact with land in as much as you can. You see a tree in the city, go say hello. Okay? Take your feet, take your shoes off. If you are able to, this is not that risky for you. Take your shoes, feet on the soil, feet in the water. You have next to you. Put your feet in the water. Pray for them to be clear. Pray with the water. If tantric, flow water. Okay, you know. Pray for nature. Okay, pray for nature. Then those are things we can do. So there are points of interference that we can do something about. Okay. So the living space that is inclusive and allows inspiration for people. You know, if somebody say I'm child free, okay, don't get into the womb. No, it's not good. Let them be like, you know how many child aunties are there raising children? The neighbor was like this. She was raising children. It was just not her own children. She was assisting with that. People that trans person, maybe they want gender affirming operation, maybe they don't want. Okay, it's important for a person to be informed what the procedure and what can be complications. They have to know. Okay. Other than that, they are not threatening your race. They're making your race weaker. They're making your race stronger. If a person travels and brings something from a place that they traveled from, okay, it's making us. If we travel more, we won't have this situation. Like the entire world goes to India. I'm one of the only Israelis who did not go there yet. Okay, entire Israel goes to India. One man brings something, I don't know if with plants or something, or even food, and there was something, a bacteria from there, and the whole world goes nuggets. Okay, if people traveled more, we wouldn't have a problem. If we can travel more, allocate a lifestyle, and be able to travel, to vacate in a place, our immune system is stronger. It's not just we become more resilient, we don't even feel resilient, we just feel alive. Okay? This is the time where we can get that. This is the time where we can understand that. This is the time where we can think, rationally with our head and as well as with our body. And understand what was helping me in my life. Was it helping me to not see anybody, to not talk to anybody, to not breathe next to anybody, or was it helping me to have a space that I can take my own space, and from there I can connect more safely, and I can be more flowing in life situation. Okay, those things are important, and it's also up to us for society to be more open-minded. If a person cannot work the 9 to 5, they can't work the 9 to 5. When they try to work the 9 to 5, they become sick, they become unbearable to live with. Okay, but if they try to open a business or to do something that they can do and enjoy doing, well, look at this. You work, I don't know, you paint. Come on, why are you not doing engineering, being a doctor? Why are you not doing something serious with your life? If we look at it like that, again, we're creating troubles, we're creating illness and sickness in society. This person like to do what they like to do, okay? Now, how do we as society become more accepting? It's not more accepting only because what this person is doing, they came here to do for a reason. They like to do that. Okay, it probably has a lot of value that we haven't discovered yet. And so the entire system becomes smarter. If you think about the great empire of Babylon, when they would, they didn't have everything going for them because probably, they felt like they need to conquer more land, okay? And that reason is not prosperity, lack of willing consent, okay? And but when they were going to conquer more land, they're not destroying the culture. And they were very smart. They were not destroying the culture. They teach us. Teach us what you know. Okay? Teach us what you know. And then the Babylonians became sophisticated, became an empire because they learned a lot. So you do it like this, there they do it like that. Okay? We don't need to become this all-conquering this. But another point I want to give you is the Ikigai. I don't know if that's a myth or not, but they said there's this village in Japan where people live beyond 100, and then somebody went to look and see what is their wisdom. Okay? You must understand that not only will you not have to fear being conquered or besieged, so to speak, is that when people will come to you, they will come to see how come you're so long, how come you're so happy, how come with your society it works this way. How come you don't need more land and more land and land? How come you're okay with the land and you're prospering? You don't have a little, you have a lot. But these days, come. Um, and that is pretty much, when you count in will and consent, my God, you have something that most of them, it's a blue ocean. You have something that most of them got. They don't know this. They don't know this. They constantly live on the sword. Men go to war. Women, you know, um, are in a terrible situation, and they think that this is a must. Everybody, including the children, the women, the men, everybody thinks must. You got willing consent. Now you get everything balances out. Everything balances out because you understand that those people that you thought are going inside it and making it with this, they don't want to bring more children. Oh my God, what will we do? Who work? Who will this? Who will that? Wait. Those people that live to their heart's desire, they're bringing us more teachings, more science times, more literature, time to enjoy with each other. They're helping us to take care of children, some of them. Okay? Now it makes more sense. Now it makes more sense. I was like, oh, so you don't have to fight hard. You don't have to work this hard to just survive. Okay, which was the result of Mein Kampf. It was essentially the perspective, the understanding that was affected by leaders of the spirit of the time. Okay, it was a telling, and this whole zeitgeist that oh, we're gonna gather everybody to our land, like the Geulah Biat Mashiach was same. Okay, it's not Zionist. It's all tribes and all, you know, the stay in your lane. This is the stay in your lane. Okay, when I hear stay in your lane, I get red flags all over. This is the stay, and we're going to gather everyone to our land. Then we are going to grow, population will grow, and then we will have to fight as we were moral. And this is how society knew how to live. But they forgot that women were property. Their interaction, okay, of how to have intimacy that is joyous and know when to take space, when, and also the they began to suffocate because they didn't have living space of their own. They would not be safe, so they began to lean on the man, much so, and the man had to go to war, and the man is broken, and now the woman is broken, and breaking each other. Good, huh? But that was Andrew of Mein Kampf. So we must strengthen this, and it's all the war, all this, and it's all that. And eventually he died with his spouse. They took poison, and that's it. Okay, conquered all of these so many regions, so many conquerors, and poof, the balloon collapsed. It collapsed into a tiny bit more diversity, tiny bit more balance, healthy equilibrium, sozusagen. But now we are in a situation where times are changing. And we need to understand that will and consent is not just a Venus thing. Will and consent is also a Mars thing. It's definitely in everything. Because it's the sense of self, the autonomy, right? It's the autonomy, the freedom to be myself. To say yes, no, and maybe when I want to. To feel free to say yes to my desire. And to feel to assert myself. Please. When it's a no, this is a no. And then, so Mars can give us will and consent in as much as it can. Men can give us freedom and will and consent to humanity, okay, to the value of will and consent just as much as women can. And they do. Have you tried? Why are so many women complaining? Oh, my man does not eat. When will he commit? Will he this? When will he that? Okay, because something needs to change. Something needs to change. Because he doesn't want to live in jail. That's why. And then the woman said, okay, I don't sleep with you. I'm not going to live in jail. I'm going to be all alone. And then have to raise a baby. For the baby, it's not good. Okay? Why? Because humanity needed more space for each other. To change the way we think. So, yes, let's back to our times. And we go with the core planets. Yes, Saturn now is soon going to go to Jupiter, so we're gonna. I was going to tell you. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope that this card thrown into the air that might strike discord. Okay. Will bring enlightenment, facilitate enlightenment with relative ease, even in the squaring times. So, we are now in a situation where Pluto is ruling, is Saturn ruled, so we literally are transforming karma. We're transforming the spirit of the times, and it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. It can simply mean we are looking to when was Pluto last here? Was Pluto opposing where it's here, which was the Second World War? This coming that we're talking about is coming up in the discourse. What happened then? We have realization. We can think back to what was. Again, we have the technology to do that. And we can look at what is now, and instead of saying what was, it what will be. Okay, there is the Forum Kohelet in Israel, and the book of Kohelet basically says there is nothing new under the sun. Was is what will be. And if this is, if this is true, then you are saying, okay, Jews will have another cost, and is it, yes, that's what you, okay, if this is what was, is what will be. So yes, we are going through cycles, and there's also Eris. So we're going to Aquarius here. It's different from Pisces. There's also Kali Yuga, and I don't remember the second. Okay, it's like Golden Ages and Kali Yuga or something like that. Because Kali is the deity of destruction, but also kind of like divine rage. There are many cycles. But you must understand, since 1929, we have been in the cycle of Eris in Aries. 1929, we have been in the cycle of individuating and individual humanism, individuating. The people that were involved, had Eris in Pisces. Okay, if you think about Eris in Pisces and the lack of boundaries and the longing of the motherland, the longing for the great empire, the longing for eternity, basically, can be part of Eris in Pisces. I can't say this is what it is, or definitely we were idealizing discordia. We're idealizing discord. We're idealizing what I'm afraid can happen. Neptune ingress in this. Yes, I am associating Pisces also with Neptune. I don't think it is incorrect. You can disagree, of course. And I do associate Jupiter as well with Pisces. So we are well with this one. I will end up with that. It's kind of like musings for the spirit times. And how those notions that we have with the personal planets, okay? Moon going over 19 lunar mansion. Saturn retrograde in Pisces. No longer the victim. Nobody coming to save. Okay. Okay, this is the time of the season. And Pluto Eris squaring leading to Pluto's trine. Okay. So there's the personal meets the spirit of the time. And certain things are very true for the personal. Okay? It's very true that if for a long time, let's say if a person doesn't, water the plants for a lengthy time, then they will have to replant. And this is Saturn. Okay? Somebody has to do it. We don't know how, we don't know who, somebody has to do it. But it's also true that great forests are ecosystem engulfed and you don't need a human being to water them. And we can grow forests. Okay? And forests will grow themselves. You burn a bunch of pine trees, they just multiply. Like, deep into shit. You know? And what is pine good for? Breathing. So, yeah, that is still on. That's still happening. And those bigger cycles, they have a different, okay? If you go of Saturn to a forest, the forest look at you like, the heck is this person doing? It's like, we can't you see that you're stop working so hard. You're just bothering us with our growth. We just grow here. There was a Kezia, her name is. She's an African woman. Videos, I don't remember. It's from Nigeria or I don't remember where it's from, in Africa, and she said about Africa is not safe. Africa, and it's not even. She filmed her, all white people behind her, lying on the bed in, and he said, "Your people are here chilling," and it's very like trying to go with certain reasoning into a forest, because and trying to grow agriculture there, and it's kind of like the forest is like, your trees are here chilling. What are you doing? Look at this person, works sweating so hard and grow this, grow that. It's like, come, take some strawberries, take some blueberries, something. Don't work so hard, okay? And so, with every spirit of the times, we also have to think in this way. Because if we do it correctly, or sometimes if we don't have to do anything for things to be okay, then maybe that's the point. But you can trying to ourselves out of victim mentality. Eris like, but your whole structure is corrupt. We're changing. Why are some people being poisoned? If they don't get that there is a connection between intestines to the nervous system, they will die. Okay? And in that way, it's very difficult to facilitate Eris, because their intention to say there is the tendency to think, why me? Where like you do a bit of how do I get out of it. And so it's like, if you look at your chart, the transit, maybe some magical talisman would be doing something different. We don't know. You didn't have, oh, but it was fated that you magical, or that you did have that magical talisman. So, yeah. Oh, Nathan. I managed to touch. She was eating. I just touched her back and she didn't recoil all that much, which is a great advancement. And isn't that in the spirit of the time while I'm talking half an hour about willing consent and then touch my cat is eating? So yeah, I wish a good night or morning or evening or afternoon, whatever, and see you day. Bye-bye.